Hey all you super players out there, this is Ben aka 5 Buck Lunch coming at you with a video on the counter mechanic for Dragon Ball Super, most especially counter plays. I've seen a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation in the past couple weeks with Bandai giving us a whole bunch of counterplay with auto effects. People aren't really sure quite how they work, so I want to just give an overview with lots of examples on exactly how these work, how you can use it to your advantage, what exactly is a counter timing window, when are there multiples, all sorts of good things like that. So one thing I want you to think about is a counterplay, unlike a lot of other card games, isn't so much like a true counter. Like in Magic, if you're countering a card, it's being negated, or in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you're playing a Solemn Judgment on something, it's being negated. In this, counterplay is more of a window where you get to activate your effect in response to theirs. Even cards like Preemptive Strike aren't really true negates. It's just instead of playing the card, it gets sent to the discard. You're not like negating the effect or anything like that. Uh, so first off, I want to go over the easy one. We're going to go over the timing windows. Uh, when an opponent plays a card normally, so let's say tap 3 to play Cabba and Vegeta, there is one timing window. Your opponent taps, says, hey, I'm activating Cabba Vegeta to put in play. You say, all right, I have a counter. You can play any counter in this counter timing. So Preemptive Strike or Vegeta the Cruel, for example, and the effect will resolve. So let's say Preemptive Strike it, goes to the discard pile, Vegeta the Cruel comes into play, Vegeta the Cruel comes into play. Vegeta the Cruel autos goes off, we can KO something and make our opponent warp a card. Nice and easy. Now, where it gets more complicated is if we are using an effect to put something into play. If we use an effect to put something into play, then there are two counter timing windows. The first one is when you activate the effect. So let's say we are going to combo this Vegeta the Cruel and arrival this Vados Champa. So now we pay the costs and announce, hey, we are arrivaling Vados Champa. Now we have a counter window because an effect is activating that will put something into play. Uh, we can activate any counter timing in this window. So Preemptive Strike, it'll get discarded instead of putting into play. Vegeta the Cruel, it will be put into play. So counterplay, play this card. Then our auto will go into pending. His effect will resolve, putting Champa into play with the arrival. And our auto will resolve afterwards, Vegeta the Cruel, KOing something and causing them to warp a card in their hand. The second timing window is just like the when you're playing something normally. So arrival, say, okay, we're not countering on first timing window. Card comes into play, any autos activates, and we can counterplay with any counterplay card. Now, the trick with this is on the second timing window, since the card is technically already in play, if you activate an effect that does something when the card comes into play, or instead of putting the card into play, it goes to the discard, like Preemptive Strike, or Frost Poison is another good example, then this card will do nothing if the card is already in play. So don't activate anything on the second counter timing window that won't work if the card is already on the board. You can still activate it though, and this is a good way to lose cards in games in competitive matches. So if I wait till this card's in play on the second timing window and I play Preemptive Strike, nothing will happen. Preemptive Strike will get discarded, and I still have to play my mana. So make sure you're not doing that. You have to activate those kind of cards on the first counter timing window. However, for counter plays, it honestly doesn't really matter in this circumstance. It's going to work the same. This comes down, Vegeta the Cruel comes down, and I get to KO something, and they warp their card out of hand. Now, where it gets a little more complicated is if, say, we already have this on board, and they play a Khalifa. So there's two counterplay windows because we're activating an effect that puts a card in play. But this is what I like to call a delayed put in play effect. It's not an official term. It's just something I use for an example of when an effect activates that puts something in play but doesn't actually come in play till later. So the first timing window is when we activate the effect The second window is going to be when the card actually comes into play. So a first timing window, we can do things like Preemptive Strike. However, we can also do things like our put in play Kaioken Goku. So now how this is going to work is we're, all right, effect activates, that'll put in play. All right, counterplay. Now, your counterplay is going to come in play right now while their thing is still in their combo area. And the effect of Max Speed Kaioken will activate, allowing you to minus 10k a card and minus 5k a card. So we can select to minus the Kale and Khalifa here and get rid of both of them. Then this won't have anything to come in on and it'll just get discarded. We could also wait till the second timing window, which will be after they combo, or I'm sorry, after the battle. So after the battle, say I take damage or whatever. Now this Khalifa comes into play, hits the board. Bam. We'll just move that over there. Boom. There we go. All right. So it comes into play. So now there's another timing window. So say we don't have our Max Speed Kaioken, we just have Vegeta the Cruel. Since neither of those can be KO'd, we don't want to play it on the first timing window, so there won't be any good targets to KO. So second timing window, this comes in play. We're like, all right, I would like to counterplay. Counterplay Vegeta the Cruel comes into play. Now, here we have an interesting circumstance. So Vegeta the Cruel comes in play, and we have two autos impending here. The Khalifa effect that tap for Vegeta the Cruel, that taps a card, and Vegeta the Cruel effect that KOs a card. Turn player will get to resolve these autos in whatever order they wish. So in this circumstance, it doesn't make a huge change. We'll show a example later where it makes a big difference. But so right now, so he can choose, all right, I want my Kale or Khalifa to activate first, tapping your energy. All right, then resolve Vegeta the Cruel, KOing the Khalifa, the Awakened Sister. Or Vegeta the Cruel can KO Khalifa the Awakened Sister, and then Khalifa will tap one of my cards. In this circumstance, it doesn't matter. Once autos are already impending, getting rid of the card doesn't stop them or anything like that. Alrighty. So now we're going to go over an even more complicated situation. Let's say activating Khalifa, and I already have a Kaioken on the board. So, alright, so I've got my Kaioken on the board, just sitting there from last turn. They combo Khalifa, activate timing window 1. I go, alright, that's fine. She goes, alright, put in play, auto goes into pending. Alright, I would like to counterplay that with a Vegeta the Cruel. Counter to play this card. She goes, alright, I would like to counterplay with a Champa the Trickster. Since I am putting in play a battle card with my counterplay, she can counterplay with a counterplay of her own. Now, how this is going to work is all three of these are going to come into play, and all three of their autos are going to go into pending at the same time. Turn player will get to resolve the autos in whatever order they like. So, she could say, alright, I will resolve it in Champa the Trickster first, then Khalifa, then Vegeta. So the reason you want to do that in these orders is Champa the Trickster will tap something, then Khalifa's effect will activate. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to this whole time. Kale. Kale's effect will activate and bounce a tapped card to the hand. So we're going to bounce this Max Speed Kaioken. Then Vegeta the Cruel will activate and KO Kale. Now the reason this makes a big difference is because if they had resolved that in a different order, they wouldn't have been able to KO anything. So say they resolved it, I'm going to resolve Kale first, then Vegeta, then Champa. Alright, so Kale resolves first. There's nothing to bounce. Champa resolves, taps something. Vegeta resolves, KOs the Kale. So now you see why ordering them in the right order can actually make a big difference. And turn player will always decide what auto is impending, resolve in what order. Here's another example of that. Completely different deck. So let's say my opponent is playing Pan. Oops. And she decides that she wants to put in play a Champa the Trickster. I don't know. They're playing red, yellow Pan. I don't know if that's a deck or not, but alright. Comes into play. Timing window activates. I want to play a max speed Kaioken. So now they're both going to come into play. And we have 3 autos going into pending. The Champa goes into pending to tap something. The Kaioken goes into pending to minus 10,000, minus 15,000, or minus 5,000 something. And the Pan goes into play looking to plus 5,000 and possibly draw a card. Now, as turn player, we want to resolve these in the order so where we still draw a card and save our Champa the Trickster. So we're going to say, I want to resolve Pan's effect first, then Champa's, then max speed Kaiokens. You go, all right. Pan effect resolves, plus 5,000. So Champa goes up to 20, we draw a card. Champa's effect taps Kaioken. Kaioken's effect, minus 15. So we're still at 5,000. So by resolving them in that order, not only did we get to draw a card, but we also got to keep our Champa. Whereas if we resolve the max speed first, the Champa would die and Pan's effect would not get to draw any cards. Alright, so here's kind of the other side of that situation. So, play a max speed Kaioken. My opponent counterplays with the Champa the Trickster. So now we have 3 autos going into pending here. The Pan auto, because they're playing a card. My Kaioken auto, minus 10,000, and their Champa auto tapping something. However, since I'm turn player this time, I can choose what order these effects resolve. So I want to resolve my Kaioken effect first, then Champa, then Pan. So I resolve my Kaioken, lowering him by 1,000. Champa will tap my Goku, and then Pan effect will boost it, but it only boosts up to 15, so they don't get to draw a card. So this is kind of the flip side of that Pan effect, where now I can make it so he doesn't draw a card if it's my turn, because I get to choose what order these autos resolve in. So yeah, that's kind of all I got for you. Kind of went over some higher concepts with timing windows and autos going into pending. If anyone has any questions, please leave a comment below and I can answer them. There are a lot of weird edge cases with this game where it gets kind of confusing, especially when it comes into counterplays, counter timings, things like that, and they're not wonderfully described in the rules. It took me a lot of takes to make this video because I kept missaying things. So yeah, please like, subscribe, let me know if there's any other rulings that you have questions on. I can make videos about them. And go out there and play some Super.